welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of Gamecock.
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores! Jackie Bradley Jr. delivered for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kaye. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick plays it in at the buzzer. That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody, welcome into Gamecock Pod Live for November the 12th, episode 1886. And we have got a great show on tap for you today. In just a few minutes, we will be joined by Lulu Kesin from the Greenville News. We'll get her take on Shane Beamer's comments yesterday in his press conference previewing the matchup with number 3 ranked and 9-0 Texas A&M. Then we will dive into Gamecock women's basketball recruiting. South Carolina picking up a historic commitment on Monday and waiting on another one. Perhaps any minute now. Well, actually, probably not for a couple hours now, but or maybe in about 1 hour from now at the earliest. We'll see what happens there. We'll discuss South Carolina's 65-37 win over Clemson. We will preview Southern Cal, look ahead to that matchup this weekend, and a whole lot more. Then Jordan Kaye from Go Gamecocks and the State will join. We will discuss South Carolina's 3-6 start to the season, the dismissal of Mike Shula, the transition to Mike Furrey as play caller. We will get his take on Shane Beamer's 5-minute unsolicited defense of each and every one of his offensive coordinator hires after John Whittle asked a question about the qualifications that he was looking for in the OC. Beamer just unsolicited went off and not answering the question to defend his hire of Marcus Satterfield, of Dowell Loggins, and Mike Shula. It was pretty interesting. Beamer was very bullish on Texas A&M, and why not? They're playing probably the best of any team in the country right now in all 3 phases. They're averaging almost 39 points a game. Marcel Reed is playing out of his mind. Casey Concepcion, the NC State transfer, 8 touchdown receptions as the leading touchdown maker. Their run game is prolific. They're number 1 in the country in third down defense. They're second in the country in sacks, sacking the opposing quarterback 36 times this season in 9 games. Beamer did say that South Carolina with Mike Furrey has tweaked the offense, that there were some additions and subtractions from the playbook. Davis Cutter is now coaching the quarterbacks and running the quarterback meetings, but that Mike Furrey has combined the quarterbacks and receivers. Obviously, I expect there will be changes in the pass game. After all, Mike Furrey was an NFL wide receiver, and his offenses at Limestone were up-tempo and threw it all over the yard. And I don't really think you can say much good about anything from South Carolina's offense under Mike Shula. I don't think it would have mattered if you had Ryan Williams and 2 of Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State and Nick Harbor and Rocket Sanders. I don't really think Mike Shula would have gotten anything more out of South Carolina's offense. Gamecocks are an 18.5-point underdog. And if they lose on Saturday, kickoff is at noon on ESPN, that will be 5 straight losses. South Carolina's last win was in September when they beat Kentucky. And it's probably going to be their only SEC win. They're going to be 1-7 in the SEC. And Kentucky has 2 SEC wins. South Carolina is going to finish dead last, barring a major upset, in the SEC in year 5 of the Beamer era. We'll ask Jordan Kaye we'll ask him how hot is Shane Beamer's seat, and should they go 4-8, what kind of jeopardy is he in? What kind of jeopardy should he be in? We'll dive into all of that and more, but first let me tell you about my good friend Chris Payne at Nana's Porch, the award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte area. Nana's Porch is your go-to for all your catering needs, whether it's a banquet, a wedding, a corporate event, a rehearsal dinner, a birthday, anniversary, or engagement celebration. Maybe it's celebrating a little league team. Whatever your catering needs, Nana's Porch provides unparalleled service and exquisite tasting foods. It's phenomenal. So if you have a catering event coming up, go to the homepage, nanasporch.com. That's NANASPORCH.com. Get in touch with my good friend Chris Payne. Tell him the folks at Gamecock Pod Live sent you. And even if you don't have a catering event coming up, you can support this Gamecock owned and operated business by going to nanasporch.com and buying plenty of Nana's Porch award-winning pimento cheese, whether it is smoky jalapeno or the regular pimento cheese. Both have been voted number 1 by the North Carolina Specialty Foods Association in the meat and cheese category. And one year they were voted number 1 and number 2 and won that prestigious award. All right, let's go to the capital city and bring in one of our favorites from the Greenville News, the one, the only, the great Lulu Kesin. applause there. Lulu, how's it going this morning? How are you? Thanks for sharing your time with us today.
Good. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Thank you for the little applause. That's very kind.
Yeah, they just keep adding new features. All right, so before we dive into women's basketball, and there's a lot to unpack there, you were in the room yesterday at Shane Beamer's press conference, and you got the question after the question I'm getting ready to ask you about. John Whittle asked Shane Beamer about the prerequisites that he was looking for in his next offensive coordinator hire, which will be his fourth in 5 years. 5 if you count Mike Bobo. He said you've kind of been married to wanting a guy with NFL coaching experience. Is that still the case, or are you willing to consider just somebody with a college background? And then Shane Beamer, completely unsolicited, went on about a 5-minute monologue defending each one of his offensive coordinator hires. What was the room like, and what was going through your mind when he just went off script to defend each one of the 3 offensive coordinators that are no longer coaching at South Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, I think my initial reactions and sort of what I feel like now is I think it would have been, I'm not saying that Shane addressing things, like I'm never going to tell a coach it's invalid to explain things. I think that sort of like goes hand in hand with social media. Like if something's posted on social media, a coach does have a right to address it. Do I always agree that they should? No. But in this certain scenario, had Shane been asked, what are your thoughts on people, being overly or whatever critical of your last 3 hires, then I think it's fair for him to defend. I mean, the reality of it is, regardless of what the stats show, regardless of what people think, a coach is going to defend his former employees. He's not going to sit there and say, yeah, we kind of didn't have the best choice year 1, anything like that. Why I think it sort of is drawing the reaction it is now is because he wasn't asked about the criticism. He was just asked about the NFL experience, which I think is a very valid question going forward, is that yes, regardless of if those hires were slam dunks with NFL experience or not, the college game is changing. It has already changed. And I agree that the next coordinator should have successfully called some college offense to a degree. So it was, to me, I wasn't necessarily surprised just because I know that Beamer is passionate about certain things and he's going to advocate for his friends. He's a very loyal person, but at the same time, it was very much easy. It was almost like very easy for fans and everyone on Twitter to have the reaction they're having because it wasn't directly brought up and he kind of like brought it up on his own. So whether or not, I did see somebody like tweet this that was sort of just like, what do you expect him to say? Like, of course he's going to defend his hires, but again, that wasn't the question. So that's what's allowing people to sort of have this reaction. But either way, like my initial thoughts was like, okay, he wants to address something he's seen. Like that's Shane and that's fine. That's who he is. But I definitely was worried. I had the next question. I had my hand ready on deck. So I was worried, didn't know where he was going to take the energy there. But I mean, ultimately it was fine. And he didn't I don't think he lashed out or anything. He just kind of went on his passionate little rants.
Yeah. He likes to do that. He likes to even bring up something that was on social media from a Texas A&M website about a comment after last year's game of South Carolina's crowd being the 12th man when, it's plastered everywhere at Kyle Field, Texas A&M, home of the 12th man. That's a big thing. It used to be like the 12th man was a walk-on, a celebrate, and they celebrated it. But, I mean, they also do a lot of really weird stuff there. If it wasn't a college football game, it could easily be considered a cult. So, when that was going on, were you looking around in the room at the media, other media members, the expressions on their face? Was there anybody that just had a WTH look on their face while he was, going through this unsolicited defense?
Honestly, I didn't. So the way this is, I guess, a good just general explainer because it's different for different sports. So for football, for example, like when we're in press conferences, it's like auditorium seating and Shane's at a podium. But for women's basketball, they're media scrum. So it's a lot more casual. I'm like looking at pretty much everyone, not just Dawn. So where I sit, like in order to see most people's reaction, then I would have to like fully turn around, which I don't tend to do because it makes it sort of obvious. And then in front of me, I obviously can't see. I just see like the back of people's heads. So I didn't. And pretty much the entire press conference, I was trying to figure out how to word the end of my question. So I was paying attention, but knowing I was next, I was very much just focused on making sure the tail end of my question was worded properly.
All good. All good. All right. So let's shift gears to women's basketball. So Monday afternoon, after school on the West Coast, a little bit later time than East Coast or Central Time, Kaeli Wynn got out of school and just announced her commitment to South Carolina. Just talk about the significance of this commitment because of what she is or who she is as a player, and then the significance of where she's from.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people, I mean, recruiting is hard for everyone. I'm not making excuses for Dawn, but specifically it's difficult, obviously, with her this year because she doesn't fully know what will happen with Chloe Kitts and Ashlyn Watkins. And that's a huge sort of thing on your roster. And I say thing because it's this kind of concept of like, okay, do we recruit thinking they're coming back or do we recruit thinking that they're not? I would argue it's probably smarter to just assume the worst and have extra because depth has never been an issue for Dawn. But I think getting a forward like Kaeli and somebody that's bringing sort of this new generation of forward energy to this South Carolina team is massive. Obviously, California talent is really hard to get in South Carolina. Dawn has recruited all over the place, and she's obviously an incredible recruiter. But as of late, especially a lot of California talent has stayed in state. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Juju Watkins, South Carolina, and USC or Southern Cal were the final two for her. And you can't blame her for wanting to be a hometown kid. I mean, I think it was honestly kind of really cool that she saw someone like Asia Wilson do what she did in Columbia and wanted to sort of try to mirror that. But that's all to say, bringing in a player like Wynn, not just from the state of South Carolina or of California, where one, the talent level is so high, but two, being able to continue to have that reach out there is really, really big. She's a crazy talented forward. She seems really multidimensional based on sort of the film and what I've heard about her thus far. And I think that regardless of, kind of where things are at with Chloe and Ashlyn, Dawn is still kind of losing a bit of guards. And even though Wynn's not going to be, replacing Raven Johnson on the floor next year, still having talent that smooths transitions when there is kind of like a big drop off in just experience is really huge.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Kaeli Wynn is actually the first high school player from the state of California that will sign out of high school with South Carolina since Dawn Staley has been there. You had Destiny Littleton, who transferred from Texas, who was from La Jolla, California. And then you had Tahina Paopao, who spent 3 years at Oregon. But I mean, even going back to the freshies class with Aaliyah Boston, Haley Jones was the number one player in the country that year from Archbishop Mitty. And it came down to South Carolina and Stanford for her. She chose to stay home. Kennedy Smith, who was in Joyce Edwards' class, it came down to Southern Cal and South Carolina. Jordan Lee, who was also in that class from California, she picked Texas over South Carolina. There have been a lot more, but those are just some of the, major players. Obviously, Walesko chose Iowa this year over South Carolina when it looked like South Carolina was a lock. So, and South Carolina may not be done in recruiting. They have 2 commitments now, both in ESPN's top 20. Kelsey Andrews, a 6'4" post player, originally from Alabama at IMG Academy, has committed. And South Carolina is, and I think we're both waiting and looking at the socials, because South Carolina, I think, feels pretty good about Jerzy Robinson, a consensus top 5 player from Sierra Canyon High School right outside of Los Angeles, same school as LeBron James' son attended. She was signed by Nike when she was 15. She's represented by Clutch Sports. Her agent is Jade Lee English, the daughter of Alex English, who also represents Asia Wilson. What is the latest you have on Jerzy Robinson?
Yeah, I don't have much different from the fact that I think South Carolina felt very good after her visit. And I think that South Carolina continues to feel good. I do think that I'm getting a lot of sort of like messages and a lot of like alerts, or just people seem really concerned about where South Carolina is at with recruiting. And maybe I'm naive in saying this, but just sort of based on my research and some sort of quick stuff, like even as soon as last year, like Dawn only had Isla until March of last year. And because she still had a pretty thick roster, it wasn't really that big of a concern. But still, like, you all the time, you want to make sure that you're, successful in high school recruiting, even if you have some depth in the portal to work with. So I think that it sort of was like a little bit of like misremembering that the timeline of this isn't super unusual, where Dawn is on the lower end in terms of recruits. I mean, even the year before, I think Kelsey was like the earliest recruit in a while. I mean, I think she committed maybe a couple days in October before either Tessa or Ashlyn did, but still, like, the timing of this all isn't that absurd for Dawn, and knowing the dedication that she has to high school recruits, throughout their winter season. One thing I forgot to mention about Kaeli, and I'm hoping that this comes across the right way, but I think too, like, whenever you have a school like Stanford, even UCLA, like in the mix, obviously, like, this is no knock on South Carolina's education, but those schools are known for education. So it is, even to me, a bigger deal when somebody is willing to sort of value, like, it is really cool to say, oh, I got a degree from Stanford. Like, that's something that you can hold for the rest of your life. And so for these California kids that grew up not only admiring the basketball element of Stanford, but also just like what it means to the state, that's also sort of something, whenever I see that, I'm like, oh, wow, that's an even bigger deal for these out-of-state schools that are trying to pull in talent. And that's not a knock on South Carolina's education. It's a really great school. And so, yeah, back to your point, I do think South Carolina does feel good about Jerzy. Obviously, like, you can't deny the fact that LSU is an incredibly notable, successful program. I know that obviously there's the win streak South Carolina has against LSU, but it's not like she's picking right now, between South Carolina and, I'll use my own school, like UMass, where the talent level is so drastic. So it'll be interesting to see kind of when and where this all shapes up. But last I've heard that South Carolina feels good about where Jersey's at.
I would agree. And so, to your point on Stanford, for a long time, it looked like Joyce Edwards was going to Stanford because both her parents are engineers. South Carolina did not have the major that she wanted. Stanford did. I think it was some type of environmental engineering. And so Dawn Staley worked with the Honors College. And one day at a media availability, Dawn had on a garnet cap with HC on it. I just thought it meant head coach. I mean, look, I lived in the honors college when I was at South Carolina, except it was not the honors college. It was the rattiest dorms in the history of the University of South Carolina. They bulldozed them all down and put the honors college there. But Dawn Staley won Joyce Edwards over by working with the honors college to basically create a similar major to what she was looking for at Stanford. And South Carolina's honors college is one of the tops in the country, and the international business degree is number one in the country. And so, I'm certain, like, when, this is a guess, but I think an educated guess, even though, like I said, I was not smart enough to attend the honors college. Kaeli Wynn came with Jerzy Robinson on her official visit. She was part of, now they get to bring like up to 4 family members or people they want to bring. So Kaeli was one of them. Kaeli was not seen at the football game. My guess is she was probably spending time with the folks at the honors college working out her major, since it was a similar academic situation to Joyce, but that's just a guess. All right, so next year, South Carolina will tip off the season against Maryland in Paris. After it was announced the day of the Grand Canyon game, after the Grand Canyon game, Dawn Staley was asked about opening the season in Paris again and what made it so attractive. And part of her answer, Lulu, was, I'd really like to have a French player on my roster that I could take home next November. And so there's obviously some names floating on social media of potential French players that, Dawn Staley was in Paris recruiting. She took a picture of a particular prospect wearing A1s. That picture also was circulated on social media, except the entire player. Any intel on a potential French player that could sign with South Carolina during the early signing period?
This is probably the one area of recruiting I know least about, just because it's been a lot of people at first were saying, Eve Wembanyama, but I don't believe that is the case. I believe she's like 23 years old. I don't think she's stopping in college before getting to the WNBA, as amazing as that would be. I also think this doesn't directly answer your question, but I think a good point about recruiting is, like, I really do think Nike has a huge impact on girls basketball recruiting, and especially with international players. Having a brand that does so well internationally and brings in so many different kind of levels of talent, but also areas of talent, is really, really huge. And I think that you have so many athletes that aren't American that are represented by Nike. And then you're able to have these young players who have looked up to those athletes feel that connection and kind of see that visibility transfer over to the college level. So at first, I think, myself included, so much of the focus on going to Nike was like, oh, hey, this is, great. Asia's influence, everything like that. Like, it is. It's incredible that she's quite literally written into the contract. But I also think, like, even the instance of Dawn recruiting in Paris, like, that stuff really matters. And I do think that it's in a positive way. Like, I can't sit here and confirm how much Dawn advocated for Nike in those meetings with Jeremiah Donati, but I do think, like, I do know she was really passionate about it. And I think that's huge and really smart. And obviously Dawn has a personal connection to Nike, but I think it's a really kind of great tool and tactic going forward, knowing that rev share, NIL, there's so much in place, and making sure that this element is sort of at play and involved is big.
No doubt. All right. So last night there was a basketball game. South Carolina got on the board with their first Palmetto Series win this year against Clemson. They were 0-2-1. And the streak continues, 65-37. I mean, your thoughts on the game? To me, it was kind of uneven, up and down performance. And at times I thought Mike Shula might have been on the bench calling plays. My eyes were hurting during the third quarter. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think it was a nice look at what South Carolina looks like disjointed, and I think that it was a lesson. There are a lot of lessons learned in that game. This is not to make excuses. This is honestly, which I know this is a South Carolina fan base and podcast, but like I was really impressed. I was really impressed with Clemson's coach after the game. I was impressed with what they're doing as a program. I'd sit here and say I don't think this is a hot take, but Clemson's the best team they've played so far this season. So I'm not surprised that they didn't win by 70 as they did the first two games. And he made a really great point, which was just, South Carolina's really great in half-court offense, but they hadn't had to do a ton of that because the last two teams, they were able to just beat them in transition. So what they did, which I sort of like kind of tried to dig into and sort of pick his brain a little bit about, was they were just like, if we take away, Tessa on the wings in those outlet passes, they see the floor so well. And it wasn't like they can't compete in the half court offense. They just hadn't had to do it yet with this system. And I thought it was really smart and it exposed some blemishes. And honestly, I think it's something that Dawn can maybe be thankful for, because now right before their first ranked opponent, she's like, okay, this is what we need to work on in these scenarios. After the Clemson game last year and after a few games last year, I was like, South Carolina's losing to UCLA. Like, they just don't have the offense yet for it. Like, I saw that coming. I don't feel that way right now. I think a lot of people, I mean, this goes without saying, and this can be applied to a million different things, but like social media is absurd how quickly people jump to conclusions and how people are like writing off South Carolina for the entire season. And it's just so pathetic how people can't stand their ground on opinions and just sort of feed off of like one stat or two. And that goes for like everybody across every sport, like football, baseball, whatever. So I do think that South Carolina, it's not like, oh, red flags. It's like, okay, this is a nice wake up call for a young group. Like, yes, there's experience, but there's not experience together. And I think that if people don't acknowledge that that matters, like, they're going to miss a huge part of basketball, which is chemistry. And yes, Tessa is in her third year. Yes, Tanaya is in her fourth year. But yes, Medina played last year in the SEC, but it is a whole different ball game when you're playing with, 4 other brand new people on the court. To me, like, now it goes to like, okay, how quickly can South Carolina learn and adjust? And as Dawn said, like, recognition is the first step with this team, or the kind of the key step. So I think Saturday is going to be a really good game because South Carolina sort of knows what they really need to work on.
I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I look at Tanaya Latson, who was the leading scorer in the nation last year. You can tell she's not comfortable yet with the defensive system, or, I think she's being more purposeful, trying to get her teammates involved and not just being a bucket getter like she was at FSU, but she passed up a wide open layup to try to make a pass to somebody for another layup last night. And the pass was deflected out of bounds. Just your thoughts on incorporating 4 newcomers and only having 1 new starter. To me, these are just growing pains, and they start way too soon playing basketball. Like, it's not even mid-November yet. It's still football season, and you're getting ready to play ranked opponents. And I just think these are growing pains, but I'm with you. Clearly, you can see the talent. Like, to me, this team is more talented than last year because Medina Ocote is a giant who her hands look like softball mitts and she can catch everything and finish. Even though her shots weren't falling last night, her jump shots, I mean, perfect form and right on line, they just were back rim. I mean, just talk about incorporating 4 newcomers into a short roster for the foreseeable future, 9 players. We'll talk about that next, but not really a shock, right? You played basketball. You know what it's like incorporating new teammates and new starters early in a season.
Totally. It takes time. And I think that because of the pace of play and that scheduling, not in-game pace of play, and just the fact, like you said, like I grew up, basketball started the Monday after Thanksgiving, and you still had a week of tryouts and then a week of practice before the game. Like basketball to me, even, I mean, the NBA starting in October, don't even get me started on that. But I think that with this South Carolina team, it's difficult to gel quickly when you have a short bench because you don't have almost the freedom to stay in the entire time. Like people need rest, people need minutes. If you have, last year, the roster, what Dawn had was kind of pieces to plug in. It seems as though this year she has 2 groups of 5. I'm not surprised she's working them in one by one, but it's almost to me, when she had 10, like, okay, Maddie McDaniel's the point guard of the second group. She has her 2 freshmen on the wings, and then she has Tack and Dowda. That's the group that has to gel. How Dawn is sort of subbing and getting people in is finding which groups of 5 work beyond the starters. So but there's only so much time in the game, and then when things aren't working, you're subbing, you're fixing, you're adjusting. It's just a lot of moving parts, and pretty much in my eyes, like the opposite. In some ways, you have to gel through experience. So when that experience is lacking and you're not able to get a full quarter, full 10 minutes with your starting 5, that's time lost to figure out, how they play, how they work. I think having Raven makes a world of a difference because I think she has this sort of like elite ability to really read her teammates and know exactly where they want the ball. And I think that's going to carry through. And I think it has already. It especially did in transition the first 2 games. And it will continue with Tanaya. And I mean, Tanaya was very vocal. Like she came here to work on her defense. That's not going to happen overnight. She still, she has time to improve. I think the South Carolina team will look different by SEC play. I think it will look different even by December, but it's really difficult to force chemistry, or it's bad to force chemistry, and it's difficult to find it when you feel like there's almost like a ticking clock over your head. So this South Carolina team, as Dawn pointed out, like it was great that Joyce was in Europe playing, and it was great that Isla was also in, I forget where they were both playing, but it's great that they were playing outside of Columbia, South Carolina this summer, but that's also time away. And, they're developing individually, which is a huge help, but they also need to make sure that they're, getting time and reps. And Dawn was pretty transparent about that. I keep losing my train of thought as I'm talking here, but basically Dawn was like, this team is going to need time and chemistry. And that's just what we're seeing. And I don't think that it's a lack of talent. I don't think it's a lack of effort. It's like, hey, we're new. This group of 5 is new. We're all incredibly talented on our own. It's going to take a few games to figure out how we work. And some of these sort of like ranked opponents is like trial by fire. It's like, all right, you want to play, with the best of the best. Let's see. And I do think this Southern Cal matchup is a good matchup for South Carolina. I think that it's different than what the UCLA matchup brought early last season. And I think it'll be kind of cool to see how South Carolina plays and reacts.
So in the third quarter last night, Dawn Staley gave Raven a quick hook. Was she sending her a message, or she wore out the starters. They played the rest of that entire quarter along with Agot McKeer. I'm pretty sure those were the only players that played. Man, Joyce Edwards, she was just gassed. I mean, you could see the look on her face. They put the camera on her at the end of the quarter. I think she got fouled and went to the free throw line. Was Dawn Staley trying to see what the team looked like without Raven on the floor, or was she sending her a message?
I'd honestly lean towards the former. I think that Dawn does kind of love to test the waters and loves to see, like, I jotted this down last game. Raven went out with like 2-ish minutes left, and I was like, uh-oh, like, how is this going to go? And South Carolina went on a nice like 8-0 run. Obviously, it was Bowling Green, not Clemson. Another thing sort of to the fatigue element that Sean Poppy, the Clemson coach, pointed out, like in the first half, especially Clemson, was taking shots with like 4 seconds left on the shot clock. They were forcing South Carolina to sit down and play defense for a lot longer than they had been. You know, I also think too, South Carolina, they played poorly. I'm not excusing that, but also they miss, and this goes into it, they missed so many layups. Like, it was not like they were they had some turnovers, but they weren't turning the ball over or not taking shots. Like, there were many, many layups that were one and done. You know, they missed. Clemson got the rebound. They got back on defense. Like, different ball game. I think if 5 of those 10 to 15 go in, and they were timely too. I think South Carolina's adjusting to how much to crash the boards getting back in transition. Like, there's a balance there. There was just a lot more basketball elements of the game played last night than there were the first 2 games. And I think that Dawn was probably exploring what, you know, life is like on the court without Raven, because Raven's going to have to get some rest eventually. And like you said, you know, it was a tiring game.
Last thing. So South Carolina's bench was shorter, and looks like it will be shorter for the foreseeable future. It was announced before the game that sophomore point guard Maddie McDaniel, who I think was going to be the primary backup to Raven Johnson, I think we're going to see more Tessa Johnson now. So it could be Johnson and Johnson running the point. Your thoughts on that? And I mean, when you only have 10 players to start, and you know, probably 1, maybe 2 that are not completely ready to play big minutes, you know, that just makes your bench even shorter.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation, and I think that a lot of people were confused why South Carolina like announced it before the game. Like, for context, that's a question that had to be asked if Maddie wasn't at the game. That's a difference. So from our perspective, I don't know, I'm trying to think, the last time we talked to Dawn, she said Maddie is rehabbing, you know, injury, because Maddie is injured. There was some confusion, like, is she injured? Is she not? Like, Maddie is injured. She is suspended and injured. We were sort of under the impression, like, last game, she was in uniform. She had a brace on. She wasn't going to play, but she was leaning towards. So if all of a sudden we walked in yesterday, had that tweet not gone out, it would have been odd that a player that was leaning towards recovery was not there and was not on the sideline. So the question would have came up. Whether or not Dawn addressed it, I don't know. But I think at first a lot of people were caught off guard, like, why that had to be acknowledged is because it's unusual for a player to not be at a game. I mean, Chloe Kitts is out for the entire year and she's still at every game. So had a player that could potentially go in the game if necessary had not been there, that would have been a question we would have had to ask. You know, moving forward with 9 players for the foreseeable future is really difficult. I think it's going to test South Carolina. I think, unfortunately, like, it's not an injury, so it's a situation that could probably, you know, results in some anger and frustration, like, hey, we're down a player for reasons that we can control. You know, we can't control how a ref calls a game. We can't control if foul trouble play, you know, shortens our bench. We can't really control if injuries do, but, you know, a suspension is a situation that is different, and it's frustrating, I imagine. And I think that, you know, I don't know details. I'm not going to obviously get into that, but I think that I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, Maddie's back in 2 games, but then I also wouldn't be surprised if she's back in 10 games. And that just sort of, like, I think I read Dawn's comments, like, on It's Up to Her as, like, some level of either, like, I don't want to say, like, check off a to-do list. Like there's clearly a process to her either earning trust back or getting back to whatever it is. And, you know, Dawn is somebody that's going to, one, hold her players accountable, but two, like, I don't think that it's absurd for her to expect. There was some weird criticism on like, why did Dawn mention it? Why is she airing that out? Like, one, she didn't give the reason. She was still protecting her players that way. Yes, that leaves the door open for speculation, but speculation is going to happen regardless. But two, like, I think setting up the sort of standard that you can make a mistake and it can be hidden is probably not great. And I think Dawn is just somebody that wants these kids to grow up really fast and wants to ensure that, you know, they're improving, not just on the basketball court, but as people as well. So it stinks. It really stinks going forward with 9 players, because I mean, the level, sort of the like bar for foul trouble or injuries, it's just getting lower and lower, and it's going to be hard to compete against some really deep, really good teams when you don't feel very deep yourself.
I think South Carolina is experiencing what UConn experienced a few years ago. So are you going to LA or College Station?
So funny answer this. I'm going to neither because I have a wedding. So I normally, originally the plan, I was sort of looking at it from a women's basketball angle, going to go out to California, and then some things changed there. And then I would go to college. I mean, I don't know had I not have this conflict, which I would have gone to probably at this rate, women's basketball. That said, I'm honestly thankful with all the flight chaos to not be hopping on a flight and not have to deal with either. I will be back to monitor the women's basketball game, but I will be off, and I'll have Evan is great. He covers Evan covered South Carolina women's basketball in between me and Emily Adams. So when Emily left and they didn't hire me yet, Evan was the one who covered all the way to the national championship. So he'll help me out with football, but I will not be at either in person.
All right. Well, enjoy the wedding. I don't really understand. In the South, we don't understand people that get married during football season, but it happens. And
yeah, this
great
person,
stuff. Yeah, great stuff
sorry.
as always.
Thank you. Yeah, this person, they're in the NASCAR world, so they're dealing with their own schedule a little bit, so I understand. But yeah, when I first saw Saturday in November, I didn't think that I was going to be able to go. And then thankfully my employees, they were like, value work-life balance, like you're allowed to go to a personal event. But thank you for having me as always, and I will see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Lulu. All right, now let's bring in Jordan Kaye, who's been waiting patiently in the green room.
What's going on?
All right. For hanging in there. How's it going? How is life on the beat?
It's good.
You've added some photos and a dartboard there, I see.
Oh, yeah.
In your apartment. Good stuff.
We're getting there. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So you tweeted this on X. I guess you could still call it a tweet. It's just not Twitter. Towards the end of Shane Beamer's press conference, John Whittle from the Big Spur, good friend of the program, asked Shane Beamer a question about the prerequisites for the next offensive coordinator. He had been kind of married to NFL experience. Would that still be the case, or would he, consider just somebody who's been a college coordinator? And Beamer, just unsolicited, went off the question to give a 5-minute monologue defending each one of his offensive coordinator hires. What was that like being in the room? I mean, were you like thinking like, WTH, what is happening here?
Yeah, basically. I was like, this is quite the revisionist history.
It was.
I was like, I don't know that this is the time to be like trying to prove that you've really hit on all your OC hires as you're about to hire number 4. It was just bizarre. Like the Satterfield stuff, especially, where I wasn't even there.
A lot of revisionist history on that one.
Yeah, he just like skipped over 10 games, and he's like, well, he scored 63 against Tennessee. I was like, okay, well, what happened before that?
Actually, for the record, after he had been informed he would no longer be the offensive coordinator after the season.
I know. And then, Shane had to say, well, and he wasn't fired. I was like,
right.
You're right. I guess he technically wasn't fired. That whole thing was just bizarre. I thought it was really odd.
I thought it was bizarre as well. I'm like,
it was really odd. And he even said, like, the quote was like, I'd like to push back that and then he changed it. He said, I'd like to push back that I haven't got these coordinator hire right. I was like, just say, hey, yeah, I haven't hit enough. I think he said, you could say, there were some good moments with Marcus Satterfield. Dowell Loggins got much better last season and really helped Lenore Sellers grow. And, that led him to getting a head coaching job. And, we appreciate what he did. And, I was trying to go for continuity with Mike and it didn't work out. And that's on me. That's simple. He kind of said that about the Shula thing, taking accountability for it. But the whole thing was just kind of odd of him kind of explaining the last 5 years like that.
But I mean, even before that, okay, you're 3-6. Okay, you got to be under the heat because you're almost a 3-touchdown underdog and you're facing the best team on your schedule. And if you lose, that's going to be your second losing season in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you make $8 million a year and you are in your 5th year as a head football coach in the premier all sports conference in the country. I would think you have more important things to do than respond to a Texas A&M website criticizing you for mentioning last year your crowd was like the 12th man.
Yeah.
And then on to top that, you go on a 5-minute diatribe, defend unsolicited. Again, if you or John or Lulu or Matt Dowell or Jack Veltri or WIS Rick Henry would have said, what do you have to say to the fans that have been critical of your previous offensive coordinator hires, or why should Gamecock fans trust you to get it right this time? Okay.
Yeah.
Go into it, but not the question. I mean, to me, that just goes to how snippy he is with you guys when he gets asked a tough question, or even with Gamecock Club members at events, he gets very defensive. I mean, to me, it just kind of think, what a small, insecure man this is. I mean, look, I don't make $8 million a year, and I'm not a head football coach in the Southeastern Conference, but I was a head basketball coach and an assistant basketball on the collegiate level, and there's pressure with that. But when I was doing an interview and I got asked about something, I generally just stuck to the questions because I was pretty secure in my job, and I knew how to coach my coaches. My issue with Shane Beamer is the number one job of a head coach is to coach your coaches. And I don't see after last year with Loggins and Beamer being on the sideline. So bear with me because I really want your take on this.
Okay.
That the hire was for continuity, to do the same things that you did last year. Okay. When instead, I mean, last year, Lenora Sellers was Superman, and Shane Beamer could have hired virtually outside of a handful of elite guys at elite programs. There would have been a lot of guys that would have loved to have come to Columbia, South Carolina to take over that offense with Superman. And he basically hired the Lex Luthor, who was the only guy that had kryptonite, because Mike Shula caged him in the pocket with a big rock of kryptonite there that just sucked all of his magical powers away. And Shane Beamer let him do it every week after he said, I'm in every quarterback meeting. I'm in the offensive room. We talk about the game plan and go over the call sheet on Friday night. But you stand there and let it happen. How does that happen for 10 weeks and 9 games?
That's what frustrated me so much is, like, you don't have to watch a lot of football to know, like, at least they weren't even for like 7 weeks. They didn't even try things. And that's what just drove me nuts. And I would be complimentary of Mike Shula when he did try things. I think I was pretty critical the first couple of weeks because they were running the ball just up the middle. And I was basically saying, hey, you gotta find other creative ways to, get your playmakers out in space. And to his credit, he tried it. And their perimeter blocking was so bad that the screen passes and the end arounds and a lot of the creative stuff he did just didn't work. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be critical of that anymore. And then I started looking at it and talking to smarter people. And the constant theme was, why are you not moving the pocket with Lenora Sellers? Like, he is just sitting behind the pocket. Perhaps his greatest attribute, his legs, are not being utilized. And everyone from his high school coaches to whoever has said, hey, this guy actually is kind of a better passer when he's on the run. And he was never on the run. And so that was kind of the thing of, I asked Mike Shula a number of times and Lenora Sellers, hey, why are you not moving the pocket? And their answer was always something of like, well, the spy could come through or whatever, or a linebacker. And I was like, that's why you have a running back or a tight end pick up that guy. Like, it's not impossible. NFL teams do this all the time. I'm not saying do it every play, but like, you could watch entire games and he would never leave the pocket to run. I just thought it also made life harder on him because you could tell like he was just thinking too much. And when you get someone out of the pocket, at least you're like splitting the field. So they don't have to worry about, 53 yards. You got to worry about, 26 and a half or whatever. That stuff didn't happen until the Alabama game, which surprisingly was the best game, they played all season. And then against Ole Miss, they just abandoned it. There was nothing there. So that was like the frustrating thing. And that was kind of the hard part of like, Shane Beamer was in all these meetings and knew the game plan. It's like, really? Like, why was there not more change quicker? Especially, during that first bye week. That would have been the perfect time.
Well, I mean, yes. All right. So did you watch any Alabama football when Lane Kiffin was the offensive coordinator at Alabama?
I did. Yeah. There's no way I'm going to remember what they did.
So I'm sure, though, you can see the image of Nick Saban absolutely chewing his ass out, okay, on the sideline during the game. And because Lane Kiffin was off script or was not doing what Nick Saban wanted him to do. Not even that. Dabo Swinney Kirby Smart, even Lane, okay? I just can't fathom, like, if it was me, like after the third game, okay, like South Carolina State game, okay, you couldn't run the ball against them. I would have said, hey, Mike, whatever it is that you're doing, it's not working. We could not move the ball against a MEAC team. What about what Dowell was doing? What about getting LaNorris out of the pocket? I mean, like Nick Saban would have just said, burn your playbook, and he would have turned around and picked up last year's playbook and put it in his hands and says, this is what I hired you to do. Clearly, Shane did not do that. So how hot is his seat? Because barring a major upset on Saturday, South Carolina will finish 1-7, which will be good for dead last in the SEC.
Yeah, well, to your point, I thought I know exactly what you're talking about, that clip where Nick Saban is yelling at Lane Kiffin, and someone asked afterward, hey, it looked like you and Lane had a disagreement. He said, that wasn't a disagreement. That's called an ass chewing. And I didn't see that from Shane Beamer until the Ole Miss game. That was the first time where I was like, holy crap, he is going into Mike Shula. It's also very funny that.
But he also walked like 30 yards away from him to get into him.
I was just going to point out. It's so funny because you see him yelling into the headset and you're thinking, like, is he talking to him in the box? Like, no, he's like, he's 5, he's 20 feet away. It's like so funny that they're like communicating through a headset when they're right next to each other. So that's just a bizarre thing. All coaches do that, though. That's not a Shane Beamer thing. On the seat hot part, I don't think his seat is hot yet. Shane Beamer, from everything we've heard from Jeremiah Donati, the way Shane Beamer talks, the way everyone talks, is Shane Beamer's coming back next year. I don't know any of this to be, completely fact, but I would imagine if you're South Carolina and you're looking around, you've got a couple little pinpoints to say, okay, do we really want to start to find a coach while Auburn, Florida, LSU, Penn State are all looking for a coach? That's probably number one. Do we have $38 million or $34 million to pay a buyout? Especially as we've just asked all our boosters to fund the Williams-Brice renovation. That's probably another good question. And two, do we want to be the program that, fires a coach after a 9-3 season, 1 year removed? And I think that's also a fair question. Like, at some point coaches should get a chance to bounce back. And I think Shane Beamer, at least from last year, has earned that right to make the OC hire and have a chance to bounce back.
Even if they lose at home to the worst Clemson team of this century and go 4-8. Now, mind you, this team was preseason number 13, and the expectations were college football playoff contender.
Yeah.
And you made 2 in-season firings on your offensive staff. I'm not saying they can't or won't beat Clemson because, segue, the offense has got to be better, right? Mike Furrey and Sean Elliott. It can't be worse or just as bad as it was under Mike Shula.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Like, there's no way it can't go backwards. I don't know how much it could actually improve. I don't know. I don't know if you have the personnel to be like, yeah, we can just completely revitalize this thing. Having a bye week helps, certainly. And you look across the country to like what Auburn did, what UCLA did earlier this season. that's got to give you some hope if you're South Carolina. But against this A&M team, against that pass rush, knowing what South Carolina's knowing what their offensive line has looked like this season, and also knowing that like Mike Shula was the leading voice of making all the game plans. Like Mike Furrey and Sean Elliott were still part of them. How much influence or whatever they had, you can argue that. But it's not like Mike Shula was like creating this by himself. So, the play calling part is also going to be a factor. Like, I'm sure Mike Furrey can have better ideas for how to call the plays and in what order and when to go back to things and when to abandon things. So that part will be interesting. And perhaps this is kind of maybe the first time where we see South Carolina like look better after a scripted drive.
Well, I mean, you can move the pocket more. Like,
yeah,
when, you can run more of the rollout with the high lows and the little tight end underneath kind of thing that you would see in the scripts. Okay. And to your point on Alabama, Tony Morrell from the Big Spur reporting that game plan was prepared by Mike Furrey and Sean Elliott. And so,
but my question, I saw that same thing, but did they just not do Ole Miss? Did they have such a good week against Alabama that they like? That doesn't. I'm not saying I believe that, but then it doesn't really make sense. So do they just get absolved of the blame for Ole Miss?
I mean, I just think it was a one-time deal, and it I mean, it's been bizarre. I'm not going to lie, but I mean, according to my sourcing, until he was fired, the game plans and the offense was developed and coordinated by Mike Shula and Lonnie Teasley. Now, after that, it probably was more collaborative, but at least according to my sourcing, the Alabama game was the only game plan that was not completely developed and called by Mike Shula. I don't know why after Alabama they didn't do it against Ole Miss.
Yeah.
But I mean, clearly, South Carolina has had the worst 2-minute offense in the history of college football because it consists of running up the middle multiple times when you can't run. Like Oregon's 2-minute offense, they run it up the middle, but their guy goes for 10, 15, 20 yards. Even at Iowa in a cold, pouring down rain in the fourth quarter, they could run it up the middle. Not at South Carolina. And even more of an indictment than Sellers, which is still sin. That's the sin number one. That's the breaking of the first commandment, is stripping Lenore Sellers of his powers. But number two is you didn't really develop your offense around your best players, because Rasul Faison is not a power run it up the middle back. He's a guy that needs to be in space where he can use his speed and his agility and his ability to make people miss. And instead, you were just running that dude right up the middle like he's, Rocket Sanders. And Matthew Fuller's the only guy that even resembles Rocket Sanders, and he's not Rocket Sanders.
100%. Yeah. A lot of this too, I'm curious of what South Carolina does in the portal. They did not do well enough evaluating and then getting talent out of the portal this last year. And I think that's a lot of the concern going forward is, hey, like, are you going to be able to get the talent necessary to bounce back? And I don't know that we know that yet. And, I think it'll be interesting to see, can those young offensive linemen maybe develop better under Sean Elliott? Because, I mean, they've got plenty of star talent, stars, but it hasn't turned into anything. And so can Sean Elliott, will he, continue on as O-line coach, and can he, revitalize that room?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's clearly the answer on the staff. I mean, that's why he was hired.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, a few months before he was hired, he was supposed to be hired to replace Lonnie Teasley, and then Shane Beamer changed his mind.
Oh, wow.
And when Justin Stepp didn't like the demotion to tight ends coach and went to Illinois, I mean, Sean Elliott just wanted to be in Columbia with his family. I mean, they were –
yeah.
He and his son were in Atlanta. His Summer and his daughter were in Columbia. And, I mean, I think he said he put like 400,000 miles on his pickup truck or something going back and forth during his time at Georgia State. That doesn't even count going out recruiting.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I mean, I do think there's been improvement, at least more discipline on pre-snap penalties, and there were some signs of life against Alabama, not so much Ole Miss. But what about the job Clayton White's done? Because to me, that's gotten lost in all of this. I mean, offensively, when you take away the non-offensive touchdowns, if you just adjust the scoring offense to offensive points, South Carolina was only averaging 15 points per game on offense this season. That's that the offense scored touchdowns and kicked field goals. That is abysmal. Even at 20.1 points or whatever it was like 129 out of 136 in the country. But the defense, after massive personnel losses to the NFL and to graduation, I think that's kind of gotten lost on what kind of job Clayton White and his defense have done keeping South Carolina in every game into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. And I give them a lot of credit because, like, a lot of the stats aren't great, but they really have never been incredible under Clayton White stats wise. But his defense just they pony up when they need to. Like, Clayton White is the definition of a guy who can get his defense to be bend but don't break. And they're going to give up yards, they're going to miss some tackles, but man, in the red zone, they are as good as anyone of not allowing touchdowns, forcing field goals. They're really good on fourth down in critical situations of getting turnover on downs. And they're not going to lead the country in turnovers, but they're going to get enough to, put the offense in good positions to win. You think about, all those games last year that South Carolina ended up being close in or winning. I mean, a lot of it was built on the defense of keeping them in those. You think about Clemson being, the number one. But yeah, I mean, he's been fantastic the last 2 years. And I think when Shane didn't fire Mike Shula earlier in the season, I was wondering if he was thinking back to 2023 when people were calling for him to fire Clayton White. And, he kind of had a conversation with Clayton and told him things needed to change. And Clayton White changed the defense and kind of started implementing more 3-3-5 and really revitalized that defense late in the season, got it turned around, was kept on staff and then got an extension, is now the highest paid assistant. Like, I imagine that's what Shane Beamer was hoping Mike Shula was, and it just didn't work the same. It'll be interesting to see too. Does Clayton White get any consideration for head coaching jobs later this winter? I think that's something to monitor. I thought he might be in the running for some last year. So it'll be interesting what what kind of comes available and also what he would take. I mean, he's making $2 million a year. There's not many jobs that financially would really make sense for him to jump to.
Well, perhaps his alma mater at NC State.
I don't know if it's, well, yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Could be open. Dave Doran, those kind of like a fungus. I mean, you think you're getting ready to get rid of him, and then he upsets somebody.
I was thinking that too.
Maybe I just tuned Shane Beamer out because of the coach speak and the rah-rah of and the bravado of every press conference on Tuesday, but I don't think we've heard the praise of Clayton White or Beamer promoting him, like talking about the job he's done at South Carolina, because most years they've been at the top of the SEC in takeaways. Their scoring defense, the numbers have been good enough. I mean, yeah, not like 9 or 10 or 12 points a game, but, if you're only giving up 21 or 22 points a game with Lenore Sellers and Nick Harbor and 5- and 4-star offensive linemen and running backs, you ought to be scoring more than 20.1 points per game.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose to Beamer's credit, like, he's never really asked about the defense because it's just kind of a unspoken thing of, hey, it's good enough.
And clearly the issues have been on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, no doubt. So, but you're right. I mean, yeah, people need to appreciate, what they have in Clayton White.
And look, I was one of the ones in 2023. I mean, I can tell you the week of the Kentucky game, before that game, if it had not gone well, Clayton White probably would not have had a job. But, they were incredible. And I was actually on the field for the pregame. And, dude, Nick Harbor looks like a predator with the all-black uniform. He's bigger than 6'5". I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing night, and Clayton White's, he did, to his credit, change the defense, mix the defense up. And I think ever since then, he's really taken it to another level, and all credit to him for the massive personnel losses. I mean, no, you hadn't replaced Nick Eamon-Worry, but you've made up for it. And, even playing without your best cornerback for over a month, Judge Collier, they survived. Although I think by now every team in the country knows when Miles Norwood is in the game, if it's 3rd or 4th down, we're going right at him. Like they definitely pick on him. That's probably like the only thing I can say that's not positive about the defense. The guys up front, have made progress. Brian Thomas Jr., Dylan Stewart, Dez, JT Gear's been serviceable. Nick Barrett, Monkel Goodwine, the notorious GBD, Gabriel Brownlow Dendy, has shown why he was a 5-star guy. Troy Pikes, Devontae Miles, the linebackers, Justin Okoronkwo and Murphy and J.R. Johnson have looked really good. And, the secondary, Torian Gray, outside of Miles Norwood, they just got a bunch of dudes back there. They get it done.
Yeah. No, they're going to give up. They're going to give up plays, give up big runs, but they are good at keeping teams out of the end zone. And that is a skill.
All right. So if you had to forecast South Carolina's final record, we know it's going to be between 3-9, and well,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be a winning season because they're not beating Texas A&M unless Texas A&M beats themselves.
Yeah.
But outside of that, can you see 2 wins to end the season, or is it more likely 4-8?
No, I think you can definitely see 2 wins. It's kind of like funny. It feels like both the Clemson and Carolina fans feel like they're going to lose that game when usually it's the exact opposite. So that one's impossible. Like, I have no idea what's happening with Clemson, Carolina this year. I think it's odd that since Shane Beamer's taken over, the home team has never won that game, which is so bizarre. So like almost for that reason, I'm like, yeah, maybe Clemson's got an advantage, but also South Carolina, I don't know. I have no idea what's happening with that game. I think they're going to beat Coastal. I don't think they're going to beat Texas A&M. So between 4 and 5 wins, if I had to say, we'll say 5 wins. I think, South Carolina might be a little more eager to win that game than Clemson will be last week of the season.
I mean, that would be a feather in Shane Beamer's cap with the fan base, and particularly the older fan base with got a lot of older guys on the board of trustees.
No
that
doubt.
Would be 3 wins in the last 4 years against Clemson. And even the game you lost, you didn't give up a defensive touchdown.
Yep.
A kind of bizarre backwards pass, in that game at Williams-Brice, and it'd be 2 straight and the first home win against Clemson since 2013.
Yeah, and it's a nice thing to take. I mean, as you know, anytime you beat Clemson to end the season, regardless of how bad the season is, you can take that with you the entire offseason. You can show up to all the Booster Club events with the Palmetto Trophy and have people take pictures of it. You can say, hey, our season didn't go as planned, but, we really think we figured out things, and, that's why we were able to beat Clemson. Like, you can really spin things positively going into the offseason if you beat Clemson. If you don't, it gets a little bit harder.
No doubt. So last question, Lenore Sellers, NFL, return to college, and if he returns to college, is it South Carolina or does somebody?
Yeah. I thought for a long time that he was going to the NFL, and kind of the more you hear from the NFL people, it's like, yeah, it seems a little less likely. So, with that, I guess I'll probably say that he'll return to college, and I do think he would return to South Carolina. Certainly people are going to come calling. And if, I think some of it probably is dictated on, the offensive coordinator hire, but, I think that he probably would want to return. It's his home state, all that stuff. His brother's on the team. I know, he likes Shane Beamer. South Carolina certainly is going to want him back if possible. They don't want to restart the quarterback search. So that would be, if it's kind of trending this way and the NFL is if it's not looking like he's going to be a first rounder, then I think he'll return to South Carolina.
I mean, that would make it a lot more attractive, the job. Like if Shane Beamer could bring guys on campus and Lenore Sellers be a part of that process, or at least they would know, hey, I'm coming back next year.
Yeah.
With Donovan Murph and Jaden Sellers and Brian Rowe and Nick Harbor and Malik Clark. And by the way, the top wide receiver in the state of Pennsylvania who runs 10-400 meters, who's redshirting this year. I mean, and all those offensive linemen, and you're bringing in a 4-star and a 5-star offensive lineman in this recruiting class if you hold on to them.
Yeah.
And the number 1 dual threat quarterback in the country has shut his recruitment down, Landon Duckworth, and said, I'm definitely signing with South Carolina. I mean, Shane, brother, please don't screw it up. I mean, if you got Lenore Sellers and Landon Duckworth and Cutter Woods and Air Nolan in your quarterback room, that's a big selling point, I think, to offensive coordinator candidates.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm with you. Shane needs to nail this this hire.
No doubt. Hey, Jordan, I know you got to run. I know you got coordinators press conference coming up, but thanks for being with us, and thanks for waiting patiently in the green room there for a few minutes. And
thank you, Steve.
Yeah, great stuff as always. Be well, my friend. We'll catch up with you down the road.
You too. See you.
Yeah. All right, that was Jordan Kaye from Go Gamecocks and the State. This has been Gamecock Pod Live for November the 12th. Yesterday was Veterans Day. And so I want to make it a point, you know, my dad and all his brothers and even his sister, she was married to a career military man. My dad, Carl Parker Allsett, United States Navy, served on the USS Shangri-La in the Eastern Theater in the Philippines and Japan. My uncle, Floyd Allsett, United States Marines. My uncle, Douglas Dwight Allsett, my dad's baby brother and the final issue of Frank and Ella Mae Allsett. And the only one still with us, 81 years old and going strong. Career United States Air Force, spent most of his career at Ramstein Air Force Base in Germany. And Frank and Ella Mae's firstborn, Tommy Allsett, United States Army. And even my brother, Rodney Carl Allsett, United States Marine. So my cousin, Bud Allsett, served as a Navy frogman in World War II and helped liberate France of the Nazis. So shout out to all the veterans, the families of the veterans who are no longer with us, the families, the spouses, the parents of veterans that are currently serving either in the U.S. or abroad. Thank you to all the veterans for your service and to their family members for faithfully supporting those veterans. As somebody that spent a lot of time in and around Killeen and Fort Hood, our veterans really deserve a lot better than they get from our country when they come back from war. That goes all the way back to, World War II. Our veterans were treated as heroes. After the Vietnam War, they were spat upon and people threw red paint or animal blood on them and called them baby killers. America's not always treated the veterans the way they should, their health care, their mental well-being. And so I hope that will improve. And I have a special place in my heart for everybody that has served or is presently serving our country. So God bless our troops. God protect our troops. God bless all of you. Thank you to everyone who's watched. Thanks to Lulu Kesin and Jordan Kaye for being with us as we get ready to sign off. I was hoping maybe we would maybe have a men's or women's basketball signing today. Gamecock men's basketball is back in action tonight. They will take on Presbyterian at 7 o'clock. That game will be streaming on the ESPN app, SEC Network Plus, and ESPN Plus. And stay tuned to the YouTube feed. If you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button. You'll be notified. I will tell you, I do have one pre-recorded video in the hopper that's waiting to go up if there's some big recruiting news. So stay tuned in for that. And any breaking news on the offensive coordinator search. And so until next time, this is Keith Alsep saying go Gamecocks, and God bless all of you. Until next week, we'll be back same bat time, same bat channel. I'm out of here. Everybody have a great rest of the week.